is Javier Balramos. This is Planet Texas Podcast. I have a special guest today. I have DeQuinn Watson. DeQuinn Watson, you may know him as Power Dragon. Thank you for being on the show today.
Yeah, I don't know how special I am, but I'm definitely a guest, but it's good to be here.
Well, it's good when you send the invite and they actually accept it.
That's true. I know from doing my own shows that sometimes it can be hard getting things lined up with people.
Yeah, so today we're going to talk a little bit about the Hunter Burden Memorial, but we're actually going to talk about suicide awareness.
Yeah, I think the topic itself is tough for people because I would say, especially as Americans, we don't even talk about death well. You know what I mean? Much less how it occurs. But the idea of death is hard for people to even process. So then when we start talking about things that lead people toward death that you can't see, because, it's one thing when somebody's visibly sick or whatever, we can have those conversations. But I think when there's stuff going on internally, physically, emotionally, whatever, mentally that you can't see, it makes the conversations even harder.
And I like to think amongst our group of Magic the Gathering, not just Magic the Gathering, we can also include Yu-Gi-Oh players, Pokemon, all the other ones. It's actually a little worse than that, a little more than that for quite a few people, where they even just have those thoughts. Suicide is really deeply complex, and it's a very sensitive issue, which affects individuals, their families, the community, even worldwide.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I was even looking up the statistics, and it's consistently somewhere in between 11th, 12th, and 10th highest ranking of deaths in the United States.
Yeah, there's way more than people consider. I think unless you've been close to it, somebody who's taken themselves, you don't realize how common it is. There's even different professions like dentists and doctors or whatever, and lawyers, where it's even higher, just from job stress or being the breadwinners or whatever, or, losing prestige within their space or whatever. Even that puts a lot of pressure on people and drives them to suicide. So that's even wilder when you start thinking about, even some of these high paid professions have high rates of suicide.
We're hopefully today, when we have this conversation about it, it will make it a little bit easier. I would like to think our goal is to create a safe and supportive environment where everybody can actually come together and have an open discussion of factors that contributes to suicide.
Yeah, I think, that's kind of the thing when you talk about gamers necessarily having issues. Some of it is because in a lot of circles, gamers are outcast on some level, right? They're not the cool kids. They're picked on a little bit, and that's always tough, especially in your formative years, where all you want to do is be accepted, right? You want to be part of a group or whatever it is. And then when you're not, that starts to get to you, and that sticks with people for a long time. That's why one of the benefits of doing some of these bigger events or charities or whatever based around gaming is that it gives you an instant community, right? Gamers are just, hey, are you nice? Awesome. Come sit at my table, right? That's all they care about, right? It doesn't really matter about anything else. And I think that's one of the reasons even now you're seeing a lot of people start turning toward gaming, right? There's a bunch of hobbies you can have, but there's very few where you can just walk up at a convention or even go to your local game store or whatever and automatically be accepted into a group. That's kind of a rare thing.
It is. It's also it's a sense of want and need amongst the community, really, when it comes to the TCG players and so forth.
Yeah, there's a good bit of that. It's a combination of wanting, having a community to be part of, but also the people in the community wanting to share their love of whatever that thing is, whether it's a card game or miniatures game or whatever it happens to be. They're just wanting more people to share it with. Because the other side of this too is when they've been shunned or outcast for this thing for so long, now you have people that want to know about it. Awesome, give me an opportunity to share it, right? It makes it a lot easier to kind of connect with folks.
Like, and also we're gonna go through a couple of the signs that we should be like. When someone talks about that they want to die, or like you have these people who feel empty, they feel hopeless, like they don't actually have like a reason to live, or at least they say they don't. They have like withdrawals from their family and their friends.
Yeah.
Generally some of them may just want to like, out of the blue, they just start giving away their possessions, excuse me.
Yeah,
Like
weird
there's a
behavior like
lot.
that is often an early sign of, if at the very least, of some level of depression, that eventually leads to potential suicide. And it's easy to ignore that and go like, oh, so and so is just having a bad day, or oh, this they're just going through something. And it's like, you know what, they might be, but it doesn't hurt to just ask or find out or lend a hand or whatever, right? Because you just never know. I told the story one year at the Hunter Burton that about a guy had been playing local poker game, and I met a dude. I say met a dude. I was gaming with the guy that I'd played with a few times before, and everything seemed normal, even, and then we find out he took his life, a couple days later. No rhyme or reason, even, right? And then as people start talking, they're like, well, there was this time he was kind of talking about this, or he was kind of having these family issues. And it's like, well, those could have been those early signs, right? Sometimes just giving somebody a place to vent, just letting them know that they don't have to tackle a situation by themselves could be the difference. It doesn't have to be a big to do. Sometimes it's just a really small thing to let somebody know that they're not alone, or that what they're going through isn't even unique to them. Finding other people that have been through the same thing sometimes helps people out.
Well, like a lot of the problems, a lot of like the warning signs or so forth is like some of them may have been physically abused, like sexually, which is
Sure.
also like child abuse is one of the also things, and just like substance abuse is somewhat one of the bigger issues that we actually have.
Yeah.
And then,
I would also say a lot of those are even on some level connected, right? People that have been abused a lot when they're younger, or been in abusive relationships or whatever, sometimes turn to substance abuse to kind of get over the pain, block out the thoughts, whatever the case is. And it kind of just compounds on itself.
so like some of the things that we could do to help them is we can actually talk to them directly. Not like upfront, like very aggressive, but maybe like kind of like an easier way of talking to them about, hey, are you actually thinking about killing yourself? Or are you actually thinking about suicide? Maybe you should come talk to me or talk to somebody else.
Yeah, at the event, that's one of the things we've made a point to do every year. Is I find a couple of people, we just sit down and have conversations with them about some people that may be going through something at that time, or people that have recently, for lack of a better word, conquered their thoughts on suicide, to give people an idea of just, hey, here's how these conversations can go. It's not so much to say this person solved their problem, this is how you need to do it. Some of it is just like, hey, here's an example of how this tough conversation can occur. Because again, I think that's part of the issue is people don't know what to say or how to say it, for fear of maybe either setting that person off, or just offending somebody, or overstepping, but sometimes it's just, you got to approach it as from a level of like, hey, I love you, I'm just trying to show some concern here to help you out.
Yeah, that's pretty good. A lot of people actually don't have a lack of like caring. Like when we're so quick to place judgment on like the simplest things without actually thinking it through.
On everything. Like,
Yeah.
seriously. We are terrible. Hell, just the political scene right now will show you that. Like, anything that gets said automatically is super judgment, right? Whether it's a big deal or a small deal. Like, your favorite celebrity is wearing a certain, or a red shirt. We're like, oh my God, they said their favorite color was blue. How are they wearing a red shirt? Like, we got to chill sometimes. It's not that big a deal most of the time. But I think that culture, though, also leads to, when people have these thoughts, they're afraid to open up, right? Because they don't want to be judged the same way for looking weak or whatever, right? Like, everybody has these different ideas of how people are going to perceive them because they're having a weak moment.
And that's true. That's really, really true. You know, a lot of times that we really don't take it seriously when somebody says these things.
Yeah, I think that comes back to the fact that we can't see it, right? It's the same way when somebody says they have a disability. If it's not a obvious physical disability, people are quick to discount it, right? Because if we see somebody with a bad leg or a prosthetic or whatever, or somebody in a wheelchair or whatever, we go, oh, we get it. They have a disability, right? But when somebody that maybe has a nerve issue that just can't walk very far, we see them park in the handicap space with their placard or whatever. We're like, oh, you don't even have a real handicap. Why are you parked here? And it's like, they can't walk all the way across the parking lot, but we don't know that, right? And like, I think, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, like sometimes we don't actually think about it. We're just kind of bust their balls a little bit.
Yeah,
but we don't actually think about what's really going on.
And I think that's where we kind of also discount suicidal tendencies, right? Or thoughts, because we can't see it. When somebody says something, we go, oh, whatever, everybody's going through stuff. Everybody's got a hard time. But that doesn't mean like their situation can't be more serious. At least hear somebody out to try to get an idea of, okay, this is really bad. We need to talk about it instead of just discounting it because we can't see how bad it is.
And I've talked to like other people here at the Austin area, and they're all like, well, why do you take this so serious? Like, why when I say something like this, that you go, and I let them know that I have been to 3 funerals because of suicide. I've been two of my coworkers, and then one of my friends. Like one of them committed suicide at work in one of the towers.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, and then I was on duty, and then I knew who he was, and it was really, really hard to sit there, and I could only imagine what my SOs were going through when that happened. Doubt. And then I've even had like 2 of my other coworkers attempted to commit suicide, and one of them even went to work, and you could see the redness on their neck. And then like it was that day that we realized that he was trying to end himself, and we removed him from duty and we sent him to get help. But the fact that he failed at it and he made the conscious decision to go to work the next day was just mind blowing. Like it was just like, wow, did you really just do that? And then you just made the decision to like, I'm just going to go to work like it's nothing. And
I remember the first time I encountered that where somebody had failed. I was, I believe, 11. And it was one of the neighborhood kids. We just found out he was in the hospital, and we didn't know why. We were just, told somebody was in the hospital. And you find out later why, he attempted suicide, fortunately failed, but even at that age, we had the conversations kind of lightly because you didn't really get it. It seemed kind of wild at that age that somebody, especially another kid, would do it. But even at that age, he talked about like realizing that, man, all these people actually cared about him. And it's unfortunate that it took that, even at that age, for him to realize that like, oh no, all these people do care about me. Right. Like, and he even said as he got older, it was one of those things that he thought like, man, sometimes I think about how crazy it was if I hadn't failed. Right. Because how bad would it have been for everybody else and all this other stuff I've accomplished or whatever. But you can't see that in the moment when you're dealing with all that. That's why, your coworkers being bothered that you're taking it so seriously. It's like you've had it at work, like so.
Yeah, like
I totally get why you're reaching out and saying like, hey, if you need to talk to somebody, hit me up at lunchtime or whatever, And
I've been in law enforcement for 18 years. 18 years I've been in law enforcement. Like I am now thinking about what I'm going to do as my next step in life, because I'm actually getting towards the end of this chapter to start my next chapter. And it's quite like sometimes it feels scary. Sometimes it's actually like, what are you going to do next, Hoff? Like, what is the next step in your life? And I'm just kind of like, well, I don't want to fail like everybody else where they attempt to do something else and they revert right back to what it is. So now, as like one of the elder statesmen in law enforcement, I try to encourage the younger officers. I'm like, hey, you need to make sure that your mental health state is correct. You need to study. Like, I actually encourage them to read, not read like laws, but just read like silly, idiotic stuff, like something that'll relieve the stress.
Yeah, you got to have something to create some levity in your life, right? You don't want everything to be so heavy and so stressful or whatever. That also can lead to that. Like, unfortunately, we do have people that they get up, they go to work, they come home, maybe take care of kids or do some yard work or whatever, they go to sleep and they're back at it, right? They don't have an opportunity to decompress. Like, and to your point, you've been doing what you've been doing forever. I see the same thing happen with other friends and family I've had that have been in the military and law enforcement, because you almost have this regiment, right? That you go to work, people are telling you what to do. These are your orders, whatever. And then when you get out of those services, you're kind of just listless without direction, right? And you've got to figure everything out all over again. And that's a lot of pressure for people, especially for folks that went into the military at 17, 18, 19 years old. That's all they've done for 15, 20 years. They come out and then they almost are reacclimating to life, living a whole different way. And that can be a whole different pile of pressure trying to figure all that out.
Well, honestly, it really is just like that. Like, I could personally tell you on how many of my coworkers and my family members, when they get out of the service, they really don't have direction. They really don't have like a path. Like, I had one of my relatives, and he stayed with me for 6 months. 6 months when he got out of the service, because he couldn't figure out what he wanted to do. And it was aggravating at first, but now that I got older and I've seen other of my coworkers and I've seen other people in my life do that, where they get out of the service or just they get out of the routine. Like, I can only imagine what some of the inmates I interact with have been doing that for 15 years. Or it's like 4 a.m, they get their laundry. 10 o'clock, they're eating lunch. 4 o'clock, they're eating dinner. Like, everything is set in stone. And then when you get out, like, the choice of freedom is probably like the hardest thing a person could ever do.
Well, I would say, like, think about you, like you said, you had your military friend just stay with you for 6 months. Like, imagine if they're staying with somebody else who doesn't have your patience, right? And it's telling them, oh, you're worthless. Like, you need to get off the couch. Like, you need to figure out what's going on, right? They don't have that understanding of, like, okay, this person just went from a lifestyle where everything was on a schedule and they were told what to do and everything was an order or a directive. And now they're starting from a point of, like you're saying, like, it's the freedom of, I have control of every single thing now. And that doesn't seem like a big deal to those of us that are, I guess in civilian life, and this is the way we've lived the whole time. But when you've not been that way for a very large period of time, it changes the way you think. And that's an adjustment period for people. So again, back to, like, we got to quit being so judgmental, about things. we have to give people a little bit of grace and say, like, hey, let me try to understand your situation. Because that's the other part of it too, is like, everybody, whether it's your job, your lifestyle, your occupation, your racial background, whatever it is, everybody has something different about them that you may not be familiar with. And we got to take that time to just give that a little understanding before we jump into just judging somebody based on their situation.
But there's a lot of ways that we can help them. There's a lot of ways that we can bring mental health awareness to them. Like, we can reduce the stigma by increasing understanding and reducing the stigma associated with the mental health issue, so that we can make it easier to understand what is going on with them.
I think that's the biggest one. Like, everything, even today, there's things we talk about now that we wouldn't even have been part of a conversation 15, 20 years ago. And I think we just have to normalize some things. And this is one of the big ones of people need to be able to talk about their mental health, hell, just their health in general without judgment, right? We got to stop judging those people who are parking in the handicap spot that actually have the placard just because we can't see what their disability is, right? Even when it comes to something like suicide, we have to be able to have those conversations. And they are going to be a little awkward at first. They're going to be a little tense and uncomfortable. But somebody's going through a thing. They're going to be that way sometimes, right? We talk about being adults and being able to have adult conversations. We need to have adult conversations. You know what I mean? And we have to kind of sit with that awkwardness a little bit to learn about the person and their problems or whatever, if we're going to help anybody get through it. So definitely, having those conversations matters a ton.
I mean, that is really one of the conversations that there is no easy way. Like there's no way of like going around it other than you put it out there and you hope it's for the best.
Yeah, because here's the other thing too, right? If you engage with somebody in this conversation, it's all upside, right? That's the way to look at it. Like worst case scenario, the person now knows you at least care about them, or at least are concerned about their well-being. And maybe they don't have a serious problem. They're just having a bad day. But if they are having a serious problem, you might help them overcome something that could literally be detrimental to their life, and that's kind of the way you have to think about it going into it.
Like we need to like promote early intervention. We need to bring awareness and recognition to the early signs of like mental health issues. And then maybe with like a timely manner, we can like intervene and give them a better outcome in life.
Yeah, I also think, making resources available to people is a really big deal, right? Because I don't think folks even understand what all's out there. Like even this past year, or earlier this year, actually, I just found out that there was even specialists in that field that kind of tailor their whole process to geeks and gamers effectively. They try to find out like what the person's into, what hobbies, what games, are they into anime or whatever, and then kind of tailor all the explanations to terminology and things that they understand or relate to better. Like, I didn't even know that was a thing, but now that I know, I tell people about it. You know what I mean? But there's so many different resources out there that as we learn about them, share about them, talk about them, direct people into the places they need to be, because even just showing them that there's that much stuff makes it feel like, oh, okay, a lot of people are dealing with this problem. It's not just me, right? Because whether it's a hotline or a local organization, whatever it is, we got to make sure people know about those resources, because even if they can't talk to you, maybe they feel comfortable talking to a medical professional or whatever.
I mean, really, we need to give them the support and encouragement.
Mm-hmm.
The support of the environment when the individual can feel comfortable so they can have the discussion on what's going on.
Yeah, I think that's sadly I think that's the good plan. I think you're right on that. I just think it's more of the long-term plan, right? We as culturally have to make that shift of people need to get to where they know they're not going to be judged talking about this problem, right? And we're slowly overcoming that with several things, but this needs to be tossed in that pile too, because if people don't feel comfortable talking about it, we're already stuck at the first level, right? We got to get it out in the open so we can help people get those early steps.
I mean, like I could promise you, like the first time that you have this conversation with somebody, you're going to automatically get the pushback. You're going to automatically get pushback on it because either they thought about it and they don't want to say nothing, or they supposedly have their mind made up they're going to do it. But it's like, it's our responsibility, if we actually do care about those individuals, to encourage them not to do it or change their minds.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it, right? If you care about the person, the least you can do is reach out. I don't think there's much more to say other than that. Like if you are going to say this person matters to you and you care about them, then at least reach out. Hell, to be honest, we should be doing that anyway before people get to that level, right? We should be telling people more often that, hey, brother, I love you. You should just know somebody out here is thinking about you. You know,
I mean, we should I'll give you an example of like just last year, I lost my father last year, and then literally like a week later, I lost my best friend on his birthday.
oh, that's
Like
tough, dude.
Well, it's better. I was literally one of the last people to see him alive. I went home. I woke up one morning, and this is just a week after my father passed, and I got a message saying that my friend Timothy passed away. So I literally spent like an entire month just at funerals.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're getting over one, and then you're just doing it all over again.
Mm-hmm. And I remember we were just running our mouths, just talking about nerds. And at the store, we were just making fun of everybody like we normally would. And then I went to bed and woke up, and he was gone.
Yeah, that's tough. I feel for you, dude. That's not easy. That's a long grieving period.
You know, and then we can always promote mental health awareness. Like we can always give these people the power and encouragement that we can educate. We can educate them and others, and we can learn about mental health conditions in order to share this knowledge with others.
Yeah, again, it's just creating the normalcy for all of it, right? And that's a combination of making the safe spaces that people feel they can confide in you, right? Making sure they have access to the help when they actually need it, making sure people even know what the help is, right? Putting those resources out there so people know, right? It's all part of a bigger process, but it's almost like we haven't really gotten around to even addressing mental health real heavily up until like the last decade or so. Like it's before that, I feel like there was a lot of like, you know, suck it up, be a man, you know, rub some dirt on it, you know, whatever the case is.
Yeah, that's how it used to be. That's exactly how we were raised. And
like you can't be weak, you gotta be strong for the family, you know, all this stuff. But then we're realizing like some of that mentality is actually what led to those situations, right? Sometimes somebody just needs a minute to be like, hey, you know, help me lift some of this weight off my shoulders, you know, help me with some of the responsibility, or somebody just tell me I'm doing okay, even though I'm struggling through all this, you know, just whatever the case is, just to get through just a couple more days so they can get mentally right again. You know, it's all it is. But I didn't even know anybody, at least no guys, that went to therapy up until I was probably damn near 30. You know, like it just wasn't a thing. If you're a younger dude, like you just didn't go to therapy. It just wasn't even a thing. Now I know several people that when they're having issues, you know, they have a number they can call, or maybe, you know, they'll check with their insurance. They go to therapy for 2 or 3 sessions, pick up some skills that help them out, and they're good. You know, maybe they don't have to go again. Some people go like once a month, right? But whatever it takes to help you kind of keep mentally on the right track, you do what you got to do. It doesn't really, ultimately, doesn't matter what somebody else thinks. You know, you got to take care of yourself.
You know, and by the way, I am very grateful for you being on the show.
Ah, dude, no problem, man. I think this is one of those conversations more people need to be having, honestly.
And then I know we could talk negative about our card games and everything, but I hate doing that. I really do. You know?
Yeah, you know, to kind of sidetrack, another thing I don't think helps people when we talk about people being outcasts and this, that, and the other, especially with fans of stuff, you know, whether we're talking about card games, movies, Star Wars, whatever.
Yeah, just anything in general.
Fans are the best and the worst thing to happen to every single product out there, right? They sell well because you build a lot of fans. But man, you let one character do a wrong thing, or get a director somebody doesn't like, or somebody writes one bad chapter in a book, and you would think they were setting up to burn somebody's house down, right? You know what I mean? Like, it's the worst. And it's like,
well, all you got to do is ask the last season of Game of Thrones. That's really all you got to do.
Yeah, I tell people, man, just let people have fun. Let people enjoy things. Like, don't overthink it. Like, if you go to the movies and you have a good time, it doesn't matter that a certain actor wasn't the best they've ever been. Like, it's not about it winning an Academy Award. Hell, I went to see Wolverine and Deadpool recently. I had a blast. Movie was dumb, lots of stupid jokes, lots of action. Great. Didn't need an awesome plot, didn't need amazing acting. It was just go have a good time, go home. Right?
Yeah, it's
but
like
to watch
a popcorn summer movie. It's what you want,
But to watch people complain about it, I'm like, what did you think this movie was going to be? Right? We're having fun with stuff. Like, sometimes that's okay too. Not everything has to be so over the top serious. I get it. We're fans, we're invested. But at the same time, just like, relax a little bit. Not everything has to be so high strung. Now don't get me wrong. I also get that some people just lash out at things because they're also not living in a happy place with themselves. Right? That's part of it too. They're struggling with whatever it is, finances, economy. They don't like their job. Their family's stressing them out. And they're just lashing out, especially online, to people and things that they'll never have to interact with. It's just them venting because it's a safe place to vent about something. And we kind of got to get over that culture too, because it just is stacking negativity for no reason.
Well, I like to think that social media is like one of the issues that actually draws people into it, into like considering themselves to commit suicide.
Sure. I think you're right. I mean, for two reasons. I kind of like the first, like I was saying, you see all the negativity constantly and like that just stacks up, but the other part is when people try to compare themselves to other people or other things, right? There's a saying that comparison is the thief of joy, because especially in the social media world, you're often only seeing people at their best, right? You're seeing them on vacation or trying this new outfit, or look at this awesome harvest I got in my garden, or whatever it is. But you're not seeing them struggle being tired coming home from work just like you, right? You're not seeing them trying to figure out how they're going to send their kids to college just like you, right? Because that doesn't make for good social media posts a lot of times. They're just sharing the good parts. So you're looking at yourself going like, man, I must be doing something wrong. They're the same age as me, same job as me, but somehow they're taking these awesome vacations and blah, blah. Like, and what you don't realize is that's probably one thing they saved up for like 10 years, to take their one big vacation. But you won't know that. You know what I mean? You're just looking at all your friends taking these vacations or whatever. And I think that is where social media really gets to people. Like with those two aspects, you can feel like you're not doing something right in life and underachieving. And also now you're trying to wade through all this negativity when you're already not feeling well. Right. So I think it can be bad for a lot of people. I constantly tell folks, like, you should be deleting people. You should be blocking people. You should be blocking whatever ads you don't like. Like, just streamline your social media experience so it's what the fun that you want it to be. Honestly, you don't have to deal with all that stuff. You can literally block it all out.
I mean, like right now, I'm actually like reaping the benefits of social media, because when I made the decision to start getting into social media, it was about 2.5 years ago. Mm-hmm. And 2.5 years ago, I got my certifications with Google. I got my certifications with Python. Now I'm learning cybersecurity. I already had my degrees in criminal justice and psychology. But now that I got to this point, I'm actually flying to Orlando. I'm actually going to California. I actually went to Seattle, and I'm doing all these shows and podcasts. Like, it's crazy to me here in the Austin area that I'm actually like one of the Fox News contributors off like with a little internship deal they have going on with one of the producers. Like, I would have never imagined this like 5 years ago for me.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think social media can also be very positive, right? Again, if you're using it for that way, right? You're not just wading into the pool of negativity. Like, you're looking for things with a purpose. You're joining certain groups that can help you push your career or skills or whatever. Hell, as a content creator myself, right? I've got podcasts, I've got YouTube stuff. I get to do commentary for tournaments, whatever. Like, all of that only exists because of social media, right? But at the same time, I see some of the crazy conversations that come through. I literally ignore them. I block some people when all they're doing is posting negative stuff every day because they're clickbait engagement, whatever. Like, I just people ask me all the time, like, how am I always so positive? How, whatever. It's like, because I just don't have time for the stupidity. Like, I literally just block it out.
Yeah.
I got too many other things going on. I'm trying to help too many people. Like, I just get rid of all that. I don't need it in my life. Like, what am I getting from going in and arguing with somebody for 3 hours online that I know I'm never going to change their opinion? We're never going to meet each other. Like, if anything, if they're really wrong, I'll like give them some resources and, and give my 2 cents, and then I leave the conversation. I have no other, I try to help. I give you some sources that are correct, and then I leave. I have no reason to be part of the conversation beyond that, because I know nothing good's going to come from it. I learned that a long time ago. And because of that, more opportunities come through for me through social media, because I'm connecting with more people that have that positive mindset or are looking for people for certain gigs or whatever. And it's not getting blocked out among the algorithm showing me all this other stuff. Because what people forget, especially with social media, is if you're engaging with all these negative things, well, when somebody else posts the next negative thing about that subject, you're going to be more likely to see that than the positive thing over here, because you keep engaging with this other thing. So it's showing you technically more of what you want to see by design. People don't think about that.
I wanted to sit here and talk about the benefits of our card game.
Sure.
And when I say the card game, just like, a lot of things that it does is like, it actually gives us like a mindful engagement with others, as well as the game itself. The fact that it's like, like, I hate playing like strategic strategy. That's why I don't play blue. I just kind of stay out. I know my lane, and blue ain't one of them, unless it's force of will, and that's about it. But it is very engaging. Like we really like interact with each other when it comes to the game.
I think that's one of the reasons you see so many of these big nerd and geek conventions having these insane numbers. Right, like when you're in the summer convention season, you got like Origins, Gen Con, Dragon Con, I believe slightly earlier in the year, San Diego Comic Con, whatever. And these are like weeks apart from each other all through the summer. And they're all selling out and having these crazy numbers, but it's because people get to engage with their thing in a meaningful way, right? People are getting together, sharing ideas. Like you're saying, playing the game gives you just something to connect with people on, and you really get to engage your mind and whatever, while being competitive, but not necessarily aggressively competitive toward each other, right? You're still there to have fun and be part of a community, and we're playing for prizes a lot of the time, right? It's almost a weird state for people that are only from a world where, like, you play football and you're always just against each other and whatever, you're not even supposed to help the other guy up that you knocked down, whatever, like that whole thing. But that's just not the way it exists in the gaming community, right? We're going against each other, but at the end of the game, we're still like, man, if you'd have done this thing, or man, I got lucky, and and there's a conversation, everybody's cool. I've seen guys literally playing for the top prize and then go out for dinner afterwards. Right? Like,
Oh yeah,
it's just the way it goes.
I think like one of the things I always love is like going out for beers, even if you win or lose, you still go out for beers.
For sure. We've often went and watched a wrestling pay-per-view after a big tournament, so like that's a thing that's happened.
And then also like it kind of gives us like the social interaction that we like, I'm not going to say about introverts and extroverts and all that, but we do get like the social interactions with each other at the local game stores, which frankly, like it's not really looking all that great right now, but the fact that we still need those to go there and play. And like it gets away from like the loneliness and isolation that we would have from like our daily routine that we go through.
There's another, I don't know if you've heard about it, but the concept of third spaces.
Yeah, I've
right?
heard of it.
Yeah, a lot of communities don't have those anymore. And for a lot of people, third spaces used to be like the arcade at the mall or a roller rink or whatever, where kids, I would say teenagers up to like young adults, would just go and gather and hang out. And that's where you met people or find people of like similar ideas or whatever. Maybe people you eventually end up going to concerts with or whatever. That doesn't exist in a lot of places for folks anymore. Like if kids try to go to the mall or whatever now, like they're booted out for loitering, like we're saying, these roller rinks and stuff don't even exist in a lot of spots. Like bowling alleys don't want people hanging out, or they've gotten too expensive in some places. So a lot of times for many people, especially the nerds, like the local game store kind of becomes that place. Because you can go in, demo new board games. You can go play a tournament. You can go deck build with people and just kind of like find folks in your community, right? Play a D&D game or go talk about the latest comic books that just released, whatever it is. It's almost like an alcohol-free bar for nerds. Like, I mean, it's kind of what it is.
Like, and also like when we play the game, it actually like relieves our anxiety and stress. Like when we're not playing in like super uber competitive gaming.
Yeah, the other issue too, though, I will say it can go too far the other way. Like, I think there are some people who I would say like they're not necessarily happy outside of the game. So in the game, that's the thing they feel they have control over. So you see those people that when they don't win, it's the worst thing to ever happen to them, right? You see it with video games, you see it with card games, almost because like that's their thing. That's the thing they feel they're good at. That's the space they own effectively. And then when it doesn't go their way, now it's almost like, well, this one thing I put all my time and effort into and I can't complete the goal, then like, what does that say about me? So I always caution people, like, don't let your hobbies become your identity. They should be part of your identity, but they shouldn't be the identity, because that can lead to a whole different set of mental issues. And I've watched people go down that rabbit hole too.
Yeah, and it's really hard and bad when we're just at like the actual local store, and then we see these people who are like superly aggressive on when it comes to like winning or losing.
Yeah, like for me, the way I identify those people that have those problems are when they're getting upset in a casual environment, right? When there's nothing on the line, you're just having fun with a couple of friends, and like they have to be overly like strict about certain rule things, or like getting mad that somebody didn't do something exactly right, or they lost because some crazy thing on the last turn or whatever, and they're mad about it. Those are the people I quickly go like, hey, what do you have else that's going on? Right? Because I don't think you're mad about this game. Like, that might have been the thing that set you off, but there's something else going on. And that's one way I've been able to identify some people, because folks that tend to be in an okay spot aren't getting mad over that. Right? There's usually something else happening there when people have those types of outbursts.
Yeah, that is. So one of the things that we also need to make a point of talking about is actually the Hunter Bird Memorial Open. By the way, it's March the 14th to the 16th, 2025 in Hertz, Texas. It's happening at the Hertz Conference Center, 1601 Campus Drive, Hertz, Texas, where it's happening. And it was brought up by a tragedy. So a lot of people don't know, but it's his name is Dustin Hunter Burden. That's why it's called the Hunter Burden Memorial. He actually ended his life. Because of things. I don't know if we were like able to say it or not.
Yeah, that's not probably super relevant to the conversation, but it was one of those things that like when after he passed, talking to his mother, they were just looking for a way to, one, honor him, but also try to create awareness so other people don't have this happen to their families. And the idea was born to, hey, what if we do a tournament? Because Hunter was a top level player. He'd played on the Pro Tour a couple of times. He was a competitive gamer at everything. He was a poker player, whatever. So it was like, why don't we do something in this space as a memorial to him, but we'll use that as the vehicle to create this awareness for suicide prevention. And, next year I think will be the 11th event, which is crazy to even say that it started as this little thing that had like a couple hundred people show up. And now it's a full weekend that's almost like a mini convention that has like 1,000+ people show up to it. So it's really cool that we've been able to grow it to this level. And we have artists who show up, different vendors, a bunch of different tournaments, a bunch of different companies, donate stuff for the weekend. We have live commentary of the tournaments. And throughout the weekend, even though it's about the prizes, on one level, we do a lot through the weekend of having resources available for people. Like I personally, like I was saying earlier, interview people about their experiences related to suicide. We have a lot of that stuff on the streams between games and overnight kind of showing so people can see those interviews, see those conversations. You know, even on our shirts this past year, we had the suicide prevention hotlines number on our shirts, right? To just as another way of a reminder, like, hey, don't forget there's people you can call and talk to. You know, the opening ceremonies, we almost always have somebody who's giving a testimonial related to something in the suicide space, right? Keeping that top of mind so people still go, hey, I can talk about this stuff. And yeah, let's not forget why we're here. And some of the conversations we've had from those have been wild. You know, I'm thinking of one from, I think it was 3 events back, where one of the guys we were talking to, one of the people I should say we were talking to, ended up telling us that he almost didn't make it to the event. He had contemplated driving his car off the road on the way to the event, which is, you know, live. I'm just like in my head, just like, this is crazy, you know, like, but we were able to have that conversation of like, hey, why did you feel like that? You know, and why did you not do it? You know, and having that real thought of like, hey, you know, I'm going to a spot where there's going to be people who get it, people that care, you know, this ain't the thing to do. And had somebody else come up the following year and say, man, I saw a couple of those conversations you had last year. It was nice to just hear other people going through stuff. You know, I think those helped me out. Yeah. And that may just, I mean, one person said something, but for every one person, there might be 10, there might be 50, you know, that just had to hear something that was similar to their space to go like, hey, other people are dealing with this too. Maybe I should go get help. Maybe I don't need to take myself, you know. That's why we do it.
Yeah, like it's funny that you say that. It was I'm going to put something out there that I probably shouldn't.
Sure.
I might get in trouble down the road. But one of my friends, he's actually transitioning. So I think now the proper term that he bludgeons in my head now is them, they. Mm-hmm. So now he considers them, they. And a lot of things come with transitioning.
Sure.
Like you get phantom limb disorder. Phantom limb syndrome is a real thing, which certain parts get removed if they do get removed. And identity disorder is actually a thing that comes with transitioning. And
yeah. I think the identity thing is tough for a lot of people, you know, because the way you engage with everybody changes, you know, from what you were used to or how people used to see you. And I think that is part of the contributing factor for a lot of people of having to learn to live as a whole different person. You know, it's wild to say that you're the same person, but people will see you and treat you differently, right? And that comes with that.
And then I just remembered when they came to the house and they were like, oh, well, my family is appalled. And they're just like, they couldn't believe it. And they were like, what do I do? I'm like, I was like, first I said, bro, and then he corrected me, which I was like, you know, like, yeah, because I was just like,
yeah.
I was like, whoa, wait a minute, what do you mean what you doing? Like right now you're transitioning, like you're like I'm not gonna clap for you or any of that. Like I'm not one of those people that do that. Like and I welcomed him to the house and like and they were pretty beat up. Like they were just kind of like mentally just beat down because I don't think they actually had like a doctor explain to them or a psychologist. Because when people come to me and they talk to me, I tell them, hey, have you talked to a psychologist?
Yeah. Have you talked to a professional?
Yeah. Have you talked to like an actual professional, like a psychologist, a doctor, even your own family, like family that you trust? You should have these conversations with them before you because it might just be some kind of like mental disorder, or there could be something wrong with you. Essentially, I'm not telling you not to transition. I'm not saying that, but none of that happened. They were just he felt different, and then he became them, they.
But you know, I don't think it's just a transition thing though. I think anytime you are doing something different than what your family believes to be the correct path, there's going to be stress, right? And that's hard to navigate, especially when you're the first to do something, right? I'll use myself as an example. Like when I was growing up, my family didn't know anything about any of the games I played. They didn't know nothing about D&D. They didn't know nothing about the comic books. Like that was all completely foreign to them, right? So, and I remember having friends that, growing up in Texas where there's deeply religious people, there was kids that one kid actually, I remember specifically, if he opened a pack of Magic cards and he couldn't even bring the black and red cards home because some of them had skeletons on them or some of them had like fire or whatever. He couldn't even have those in his house, so he immediately would get rid of them or trade them or whatever. And then, take the rest of the packs out to his car or whatever. And to understand that, like, for some people, even that little bit of a decision that we know now is completely harmless was enough to get people outcast from some of their families, from even playing D&D because of how they viewed it or whatever, because it's the occult or magic or whatever, right? Even though you're just reading and telling stories, right? Like hell, people used to think that way about Harry Potter and all this other stuff, right? That's tough. Like that creates a lot of these rifts. Now, I'm not saying these are the same level of somebody transitioning, but
but it's examples of what's happening.
But even people deciding they want to go to school for, I don't know, a video game design or whatever, when their family says, well, you need to go be a doctor or a lawyer or whatever, and they're disappointed in you. Hell, I went to school for commercial art and advertising. I literally didn't care what my family wanted me to do. And I was like an A student, did all the extracurriculars, did all this. And their whole time, they're like, oh, you're going to be this thing or that thing, And literally as a kid, at 16, 17, I was going, I'm not going to go to school for 10 years, whatever. Like I got to go to school to how long to be a doctor? Like, nah, I'm out, right? I'm going to go do something else, get a degree, and I want to be working in 2-3 years, like getting paid. That's what I want to do. And some of my family was disappointed, but like at the same time, I'm just going to be my own person and I'm going to do what's best for me. Right. But I know people who went through that same struggle and fought with their family because they wanted to do something different. And that one of them did go through a big mental breakdown because of it. And I get it. Right. Because now your family, the people that you thought you could trust that have cared for you, your upbringing, whatever, are now shunning you for wanting to do something that makes you happy. Right? Because you're not doing the thing they want you to do. Hell, we see it all the time with people in their weddings, right? Like they're making decisions that the family wants. And it's like, but bro, it's your money. This is what y'all are going to have pictures of later. Like, this is your life. Like, it should be what y'all want first. I mean, again, using myself as an example, our wedding, it was a steampunk wedding. Our family didn't even know what steampunk was, right? They'd never even heard of it, the concept, whatever. And people are like, well, what if your family doesn't like it? I'm like, then they can just not come. Like, we're paying for it, right? Like, it's our party. It's our celebration. And people are like, you're just going to be okay with that? Well, my family's going to have to be okay with it or not show up. And us and our friends, we're going to celebrate our big day doing it the way we want to. And it was cool. It went off that hitch. Our family showed up. They figured it out and bought outfits or whatever. It was fun. But I get how a lot of people aren't wired that way. And it's the whole, like, the dad just being disappointed in you is enough to send people spiraling. You know what I mean? Like, like sometimes it's that easy. And I think that's a hard thing because I think ultimately your family does ultimately just want what's best for you. Right. Especially our grandparents, because they were taught that, like, you go to school, you go to college for 4 to 6 years, you get a good job, you get the house with the picket fence and the 2.5 kids and, all that. But that's just not the way the world is anymore. And it's hard for the older generations to understand that. Like the fact that I make a living from my studio effectively, talking about games, making, doing commentary, whatever, like that blows my family's mind. Like they don't even process it. I remember back even when I had my store and we were running tournaments and stuff, my mother came to visit one time. And she's looking around, and we're running a big qualifier. There's like 300 and some people. And she just stands there and looks around for about a minute. And she says, so all these people paid you to be in this thing? And I was like, yeah. And she just says, well, all right. And that was it. We didn't talk about it again. Like, she didn't understand it. She didn't know why. She just knew that's how I paid my bills. And she went, okay, everybody obviously enjoys this. This is a thing. And she's had to learn a lot, right? Because I've kind of exposed her to a lot of this culture that she didn't even know was a thing. Now she calls me up and's like, hey, was that thing that I saw in Doctor Strange the same thing that was in Spider-Man or whatever? Ask me about the Marvel movies or whatever, you know? So she's come around, you know, she's into it now a bit. But yeah, it's a tough thing for a lot of people. You know, I think families can be a large source of pressure, and we have to have some understanding and some leeway, some grace in there to say like, hey, each person's their own individual. And they're going to be happy with things that I'm not happy with and vice versa. And we have to give a little bit of room for that and try to understand why they're picking that path, because it may not be that bad, you know, but again, we have to take some time to try to understand it, because I get it. You're trying to protect them and you're trying to send them down a path that you believe to be correct, but it may not actually be the best path for that person. Because the other option is they go down that path, they spend a bunch of money going to school or whatever, they end up unhappy, and then they still might end up on a suicidal path, like we see with all these doctors and dentists and other stuff, right? That still happens. So like, it's no guarantee that even if they go down that path, it's going to be the right thing for them.
I know. And then, so after like the shock of, after the shock of them being at my house, I was like, I accepted it. I just couldn't, you know, what else can you do other than you just, you go right forward with it. And I was like, all right, so what is your new name? And they're like, I don't have a new name yet. I was like, what do you mean you don't have a new name yet? Like, I can't call you. And he was like, well, yeah, you can't. Like, all right. Because I didn't know what the hell was going on. Like, when he showed up, I didn't know what the hell was going on. I was just like, you're my friend. I'm supportive. I love you. I could take care of you. Come be on my couch. It's like,
yeah, I'll just give you a place to chill while you figure it out.
Come be at the couch. And then we just kept doing what we normally do. It's just like, just be friends and do stupid things, like play video games and magic and everything. Yeah, that's all we were doing. Like, really, realistically, nothing changed on my end.
Yeah, I kind of laugh a little bit. I know some people are going to hate this part of the conversation, but I do laugh a little bit when people worry about what folks want to be called, because I just think about all the people in our families that have ridiculous nicknames anyway. You know, like hell, being a black person, we all know a Nene, a Pookie, or whatever. Like, all my Hispanic friends have a Chewy somewhere in their family, you know, like, but we don't think anything about it. So if somebody wants a nickname, whatever, man. Like, you want to change your name? Like, that doesn't bother me none. Like, just tell me which one be. Hell, I've been called a billion different things in my life because people just give me nicknames. Like, I don't, whatever. As long as I know who you're talking to. Yeah.
It's like in my family, we have David Sr. and Baby David.
There
and
you go.
The way, Baby David's like, so he was Baby David until he got to be like 30, and then he got offended because, like, well, I'm not the baby, I'm an adult now. It's like, well, you're a grown man now, I guess. And then he keeps acting like a kid, and then we just keep calling him Baby David, and he just gets like completely, utterly aggravated.
See, what's funny, in my family, we probably would have just started calling you Grown David, and then that would have annoyed you even more.
No, we actually have respect for David Sr. Like, Baby David, on the other hand, is just kind of like, you know, that one family member that just gets all the breaks, and he gets all the breaks. But yeah, that's Baby David.
Of course,
that is the 50-year-old man child that doesn't know he's a man child.
Hey, every family's got him, man. Every family's got him. So, but yeah, to bring it back to the event, you know, it really has grown quite a bit. And I think it's always interesting to see people who don't know about the event show up for the first time. Because we tell people, like, there's still a silent auction. You know, there's a VIP party the night before. It's got like a live band, usually a bunch of different food, you know. So even if you're not into gaming, you can still come be part of the whole celebration of the event and the cause. Still donate, still get some cool stuff to take home, still get educated on some things. right? It's not just for gamers. And that's one of the things
Yeah.
as we move forward. The first goal was kind of, okay, let's expand it to more games, right? Because it was just Magic in the beginning. Now we have 3-4 different games being played over the weekend. And now it's okay. Now that we figured out we can start adding more games, it's okay. Aaron's now, and Aaron's one of the guys leading up a lot of the cause, by the way, Aaron Giddings. And he's now starting an outreach program that they're going to be introducing that to different stores, different organizations that the Hunter Burton organization is going to be backing. So there's going to be like a kit with pamphlets and resources and whatever to hand out at different things to kind of help spread the word of positivity, not just to promote the event, but just to say like, hey,
Yeah.
here's some things people need to know about suicide and how to prevent it and the signs and whatever, and putting that all out there. And now starting to also add into the event, okay, people can come just be at the VIP party on Friday if they want to, be part of the special auctions, to be part of the food and the music or whatever. And you don't have to interact with the gaming stuff at all. If you just want to watch the stream to see the interviews, like that's a thing you can do, right? Kind of as we move along, figuring out the maximum number of ways we can engage with people that aren't just one particular game. It's, hey, this is a whole thing for anybody who may be struggling with this or have any connection to these issues in their lives, right? Just open it to everybody.
Well, this is probably like the only event that my ex doesn't complain about when we go. I know it's going to be funny, but like, I remember I would have to like, hey, we're going to Nashville to go play. Do you want to go? It's like, Nashville? Huh? What do you mean? Like, yeah, we're going to GP Miami. Miami? Like Miami? Like, yes, Miami. Like,
I was going to say there's only one, but there is a Miami of Ohio. So there's that.
Yeah, we're not going to Ohio.
Yeah. But I get you. I think that's the other thing people don't realize about a lot of these games is that you can connect with people wherever you are. I think that's what makes gaming such a powerful tool to be kind of like the packaging for the message, right? Is that I've traveled around the country and I can walk into almost any game store and have instant friends. It doesn't matter where I'm at. I just walk in like, oh yeah, I've played this before. Or like, yeah, I got a deck in my backpack or whatever. And you can sit down and instantly people are ready to go, right? We don't have to have any previous connection other than the game itself. And it's almost like because we speak the same language, we could sit at the same table. And
exactly.
And I've been all over the country. I've been to Baltimore, Orlando, Chicago. I'm about to go to Chicago again. I'll be in Vegas this fall, all related to gaming. Hell, even moving up to the Pacific Northwest was to work for one of the big gaming companies for a while before I got back into business for myself. Right. So even that took me to a whole other part of the country to live. Right. So I tell people like gaming on its surface, you look and go, oh, okay, it's silly, it's quirky characters, it's whatever. But ultimately, it's a whole, I want to say culture, but almost a whole segment of society now. I mean, kind of like I even said about my mom, like she ignored a lot of it, but now geek culture is kind of becoming part of just pop culture. Like the biggest movies are the comic book movies, and movies based off of video game properties and different things like old fantasy novels, like we're seeing with like Lord of the Rings and whatever, right? Like that's kind of the world we're in now. So it makes it even easier for gamers and nerds to engage with stuff, which is super awesome.
I mean, it's not like what it used to be. Like now it's more accepting and you can even say it's part of mainstream media now where you could just be a nerd and be okay. And like the level of geekiness will determine if people like you or not.
Hell, people that used to make fun of you because you were a nerd now reach out to you to ask you questions about something they don't understand in the nerddom that they just consumed. Right? like that's the world we're in.
Yeah. So, man. So one of the things I kind of want to leave everybody with is I'm going to give you the text and the numbers for the crisis lifeline, which you could just easily dial 988. That's really all you have to do is dial 988. And that's one of them. And then what else would you have?
I just want to tell people, like, whatever you're going through, understand that at any given point, there's 8 billion people on the planet. And there's been a few billion before that. You know, like rarely are you going through a thing that nobody else has ever experienced. So don't think you have to walk that path alone, whatever it is, right? Like you're saying, if it's just text somebody so you can have that conversation. You know, don't surround yourself with people that you can trust, that you can open up to, because you never know. Like, it's easy for us to sit here and say, well, I don't have any problems. I haven't to go through stuff, but I could tomorrow. And I know I have people around me I can trust, people that I can talk to, people that care about me, right? You have to be okay making sure you have that community around you. And again, don't be afraid to reach out. If it's not to somebody because you're afraid that you're going to be judged or whatever, text, call the suicide hotline, right? Those are people that particularly do want to help you. There is no judgment there, and they won't know you. It's anonymous as much as you want it to be. So you can have whatever conversation you need to have, but it's worth doing. It's not worth taking yourself out.
And I wanted to thank you again, Watson, for coming on.
Oh, dude,
now,
it's good conversation.
I'm sure you're like, well, because like what I do is not actually like, it's not actually like magic content. I just got to have fun with what it is that I do. And I had an opportunity to talk about suicide awareness as well as the Hunter Burden event.
Yeah, I think it's a conversation, again, worth having, because it's not segregated to any one community. You know, it doesn't matter if you have a lot of money or not. It doesn't matter what race you are. It doesn't matter how old you are. You know, it doesn't matter what your job is, your line of work. Every single community experiences something related to mental health problems. So everybody needs to be better educated about it.
All right. And thank you. And we're going to be off.